session that's going to be on a challenging topic, retaining clients. This is also an interesting topic because a lot of times we focus on the first part of the journey, which is, getting new clients. There are a lot of people speaking about that. We know how difficult it is, and we've also got techniques to, ace that part. But the second part, which is equally important, is retaining clients. And that's kind of been a place where we've not spoken much about, but requires really good attention. And that's exactly what we're going to be speaking today. How can you retain your clients? How can you upsell them? How do you identify those upselling opportunities? And we're majorly going to be focusing on the second part of the journey after you've won clients. And for this, we have with us Fiona Challis, who's an expert in the MSP industry. She's an MSP sales expert. She's been in the industry for a very long time. Thanks for being here, Fiona.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. So hi to everybody that's joined in for the live call. And again, for those of you who are watching the recording, welcome to the webinar. So today, as Shireen says, we're going to be talking about mainly customer retention. I know some of you might not be aware of who I am. Perhaps we haven't met before, so just give a quick introduction first of all. So as Shriram says, my name is Fiona Challis, and I'm an MSP sales expert. And I'm lucky enough to be trusted by over 500 MSPs across the UK, mainly UK, US and Canada. That's really the key areas where we work with MSPs. And what we really do with them is I help them to overcome really the top 3 challenges that most of them have, which all relates to sales and marketing. The first challenge being, how do we win clients? The second, how do we grow them? And the third, which is how do we then retain them? So today we are going to be focusing more on the retention side of it, but I'm also going to touch a little bit on the other ones for you as well, because they're actually all related and linked into your customer retention and satisfaction rates. So I'm going to introduce you to a 7-step framework that I introduce with all of the clients I work with. And we're going to go through one at a time. And what I would really love for you to do when we're going through each 7 of the retention strategies is just give yourself a score. So give yourself a score from 1 to 10, 10 being yes, we're already doing that, Fiona, we've nailed it, and 1 being we're nowhere near it. we didn't even know about it, we're not doing it. So just put a little bit of a competition on yourself, give yourself a score of 1 to 10 as we go through each 7 of the strategies, and then that will show you what gaps you need to close after today's webinar. Okay, so retention strategy number 1 all starts with creating what I call a customer for life culture. So really having a culture within your MSP right from the very, very start of the sales and marketing process, where everybody in your organization has the behavior, has the culture really ingrained in your MSP, that you don't just win customers, you win customers for life, so that you then have a higher lifetime value for each client that you win. Now, the key thing about culture isn't something that can just be straight away implemented into an MSP. It is something that is created, and that culture has to be created really from the top down, from the leaders in the business, where you really do install that entire customer for life culture in your organization. A great example of a company who have a really good customer for life culture is Salesforce. Maybe some of you already use it. Most of you will already know of Salesforce, but they are a really good example of a company that really understands their customers. They put a lot of effort into retaining them, making sure customer satisfaction is high and therefore customer retention is high. But the whole way throughout that organization, everything is about keeping the customer. So when it comes to customer retention, they are a really, really good example. So where can you start? How can you start to create this type of culture within your MSP? The best place for you to start is by putting your customer first. So really getting to know, really getting to understand who is the customers that you want to win, who are the ideal clients, the ideal customer avatar that you want to win in your MSP business. And then really getting to know more about what is it that they want, what do they want from an MSP. Now, LinkedIn And they did a really good survey on this when they asked customers, B2B decision makers, what do you really want from salespeople today? So when somebody's trying to sell you a managed service contract, what do you really want from them? What do you value the most from those salespeople? And what they actually said in the survey, and this is really huge, 94% of them, that's massive. They said that they were seeking out salespeople or teams who were able to share specific insights into their company's problems. So really understanding their business so well that they knew the problems, they knew what pitfalls they should be avoiding, and they could be that kind of educator to their customers. They also said that they were 5 times more likely to engage with a salesperson who is able to provide new insights into how their business could grow. So again, when you're thinking of engagement here, you're thinking of things like marketing, your lead gen campaigns. Are you using engaging content that is sharing insights into how you can help your customers to grow? Because really what customers are saying today is they're looking for business discussions. They're looking for business partners. They're not looking for a technology discussion. They're definitely not buying IT support services, and they're definitely not buying managed services. They're buying a business partner who can show insights into how their business can grow and insights into what pitfalls and problems they should be avoiding within their business. So when it comes to creating customer culture, it really does start with having a customer-centric approach within your MSP business, where you really do understand what it is that your customers want to buy. Now, there's probably never been a more important time for MSPs to really have this kind of culture, have a customer-centric culture within their organization. Because when we look at what's happening in the MSP market, and Shireen and I was just talking about it beforehand, about how exciting it is to be in this market today, because the spend is going to be huge. The market is expected to grow to $329 billion by 2025. So more and more customers are now starting to outsource all of their IT to an MSP, like everybody on this call. But what they're looking for is an MSP that also understands their business. And that's where that customer-centric culture comes in really, really well. The other thing that customers are looking for today is they're looking for MSPs who can help them to fill the skills gap that they've got in their own businesses. There was a fantastic report done by Computer Weekly only 2 weeks ago, actually, in the UK market, where they surveyed B2B decision makers, IT decision makers, about their plans for outsourcing. And over a third of them said in the next 12 months, we will be outsourcing more of our IT. And when we looked at the actual reasons why they said they were going to outsource their IT, it came down to 2 things. So 57% of them said that they were outsourcing because they wanted to focus more on growing their own business, focusing more on their own core business. The other one, 56%, said they were outsourcing because they wanted to gain skills and resources. They can't find skilled cybersecurity people and skilled cloud architects. They can't find those kind of skilled project managers to work within their organization. So they're outsourcing and they're looking for really good MSPs to be able to partner with. So from my experience of working in this market, the MSPs that I see winning and winning consistently and keeping those customers are MSPs who can show 2 things. You understand your customer's business, you know what they want, and you can demonstrate expertise in that area, but also you can demonstrate that you have a specialist skill set that they are looking to close, a gap they're looking to close in their own businesses. So that's what I would really encourage you to think about from today's webinar. Ideally, what you want to do, and again, we do this with every MSP we work with, is you want to understand everything that's important to your customer. So we build what we call a business outcome framework, or we also call it a business outcome storyboard, where you're spending some time getting to understand what are the key business outcomes that your clients are trying to achieve. What are the key financial outcomes they're trying to achieve? The third one, what are the business KPIs that they're trying to improve on or trying to achieve? And then the last one is the business capabilities and processes. So what are the workflows? What are all the capabilities and processes that are blocking them from success, from stopping them from achieving their goals? Or if you could help them to improve some of those business processes, how could it help their business to grow? So coming back to the insights and then coming back to the problems and pitfalls that your clients might have as well. And then, of course, we still can't ignore the pandemic. You can't ignore what was the problems they had. You know, were they able to get the business back up and running again? Or are they still putting sticky plasters on some of the areas that haven't quite been solved yet? So when you get to really understand your customer's business, what you end up doing is you end up selling the business outcomes and understanding what it is your clients are trying to achieve in their business, and you become the business partner rather than just an MSP or somebody selling IT services. So we do these storyboards for every single vertical. So whether it's finance you're selling to, professional services, and I just did another one for a pharmaceutical company this afternoon with an MSP, engineering, manufacturing, insurance, whatever vertical or niche you're selling into, I'd really encourage you to spend some time building out that storyboard, because the more you know what your client wants, the more likely they're going to buy from you. The other thing that happens is when you understand exactly what it is they're trying to achieve in their total business, you can then connect in all the technology dots. You can connect in the specialist service dots, like the cybersecurity dots, and why they need to migrate to the cloud. You can connect all of those dots into your customers' business outcomes. And when they understand how it's going to help their business to grow, that's when they then start to get a closer relationship with you, because they see how you are going to help them to focus on their own core business. And you're matching in the specialist skill set as well. So it's a win-win for both the client and for the MSP. I would really, really encourage you to do that. And that brings us on to strategy number 2, which is sell them what they want, give them what they need. So what I mean by that is most MSPs, when I first started to work with them, most of them fall into the tech trap. So they end up just talking about technology, and they end up just selling technology. And even if you look on LinkedIn, every single day I see them, people just talking about Teams, people just talking about cloud, or just talking about cybersecurity, but not linking it back into why it's important for the customer. And when you're just doing that, it doesn't stop the scroll. It doesn't stop them to look at whatever it is you're posting out. Whereas when you sell and market what customers want to buy and you give them what they need, then you get a lot more customer engagement. And the more engagement you have, the higher the customer retention is also going to be when you onboard the client. So tell what they want and give them what they need. And I'm going to give you another example, because this really helps you to see what this does whenever you have this kind of culture within your MSP business. So if I was to say to you, Harley Davidson, what do Harley Davidson sell? What do you think most people would say? What do you think Harley Davidson sell? Either put it in the chat box, or Sharon, perhaps you can volunteer. What do most people think Harley Davidson sell? Oh, Sharon's gone off. Anybody in the chat box? Okay, so motorbikes. Most of people think Harley Davidson sell motorbikes, and they used to just sell motorbikes. But in the early 1990s, Harley Davidson nearly went bust. And one of the key things they had to do to transform their business and to turn their business around is they created an organization called the Harley's Owners Group. And basically it was a customer group. It was a group of their existing customers that had bought a Harley Davidson motorbike, that had had one for many years, and they got those customers together and they just asked them, what is it you buy from us when you buy a Harley? What is the real reason why you buy a Harley Davidson. And what they really understood from that entire session with all of those existing customers is they weren't selling a motorbike. What they were selling was a lifestyle. They were selling an emotional connection every time they sold a Harley. So what they did is they transformed their entire sales and marketing strategy so that they could sell what customers want and give them what they need. So they sold the emotional attachment, but they stopped selling the hardware. And there's a good lesson in this for MSPs, because when you stop selling technology and you start selling the business results of what your customer gets by partnering with you, you achieve the same kind of result. Now, the reason I share this story in particular is as soon as Harley Davidson changed their sales and marketing strategy to be more customer-centric, within the first 12 months of changing that strategy, they increased their revenue 3 times over. So is it worth you adapting your sales and marketing strategy to not just win customers, but to also keep those customers for longer? If it's going to help you to treble your recurring revenue in the first 12 months, it's certainly a strategy that would be worth you putting some time and energy into. So I won't leave you hanging. I'll show you what Harley Davidson did change their entire sales and marketing strategy to, and what their value proposition changed to. So what they changed it to is what we sell is the ability for a 43-year-old accountant to dress in black leather, ride through small towns and have people afraid of them. Because they understood from that customers group that actually the biggest vertical and niche they were selling to was midlife men. Maybe some people on this call have a Harley. And they were selling mainly to accountants, people who wanted to have that freedom, that lifestyle, that life outside work. So they started to sell to the customer and the niche and the market and the emotional connections. Once they changed that, their entire business changed. So what about you in your MSP business? Do you have a niche or do you have a vertical that you specialize in? So if you could just put into the chat box for me, just share with me if you already have a vertical or a niche that you sell to. And by that, I mean like an industry. So it could be pharmaceutical, it could be logistics, it could be hospitality, it could be professional services. Are there any of those verticals and niches that you specialize in? If you do, give yourself an extra bonus point on your score from 1 to 10, because when you have that niche or vertical, what it really does start to do for you is it gives you more information about who do we target as a customer, what's important to them. You're able to build the storyboard out much, much easier. And then you get to sell to that customer for life, because you're starting to help them to grow their business and you're really qualifying the total customer rather than just an opportunity in front of you. And the more you tie into your total customer's business and you have like a phased implementation of when you're going to help them to achieve all their goals, that again all ties into how can you retain customers for much, much longer. Get them to see you as a business partner, because when they do, they won't leave you. Okay, did we have any verticals or niches, Sharon, that came in? No? Oh, you're on mute, I can't hear you. You're on mute?
Sorry, I didn't notice that. Sorry. So no, nothing's come up in the chat box.
Nothing yet. Okay. So perhaps everybody is just thinking about it, or perhaps you don't have a vertical or a niche that you specialize in just yet.
Okay.
I know when I work with a lot of MSPs, some of them do get concerned about, if I do niche and have a vertical, will I leave money on the table because I'm just going to focus and narrow on that vertical and niche? My answer to that is actually you're leaving money on the table by not having a vertical and a niche. Because when you think about the amount of customers who are now increasing their spend and increasing the outsourcing to managed service providers, because that market is growing really well, so is the number of MSPs. So in order for you to grab a slice of the growth pie, one of the best ways for you to do that is to differentiate, to set yourself up as that expert that has those verticals and has those niches that you can really specialize in. So with all of the MSPs we work with, we take even that storyboard example I showed you earlier, and we write even business guides. So we don't market technology, we market business results through creating things like educational business guides for the insurance sector, for engineering, for sports organization, wherever it is that you're selling to. And you don't just have to pick one. You can have 2, 3, 4. I have some MSPs that have 7 niches and verticals that they sell into, and that's fine. But what does change is the messaging and the conversation you're having with customers in those verticals and niches. So you can still have lots, but change your approach and change your messaging. Because what happens when you do have that kind of level of expertise, when people start to see you as an expert within that field, what happens is instead of you going to, let's say, a conference, in this example, many of you maybe go to trade shows, you go to conferences where your customers go to, instead of just having an exhibition stand and waiting for customers to come out on the break and then trying to pull them to come into a stand with you, instead, you get asked to go up on the stage. You get asked to be part of the customer panel that is talking to all of the customers within the room. This is a really good example, actually. Air IT, most of you probably know of them. They're one of the largest MSPs within the UK. And again, we've trained all their people and taken them through this program. And one of the events, one of the customer events they went to not so long ago, actually about 4 months ago, previously they would have just had an exhibition stand. But because now they have such an understanding of their customer and what's important to them, for the first time ever, they were actually up as a panel expert because people seen them as an expert within that industry. And I asked them after the event, what was the biggest difference when you were asked to come up on the stage instead of just standing on an exhibition stand? And they said the biggest difference is when the breaks happened, customers came to us instead of us chasing them. So when you set yourself up with that level of expertise, that is what happens. It becomes much easier for you to market, to attract and to keep clients within that sector. The second thing I would really encourage you to do here, and again, this links into business outcomes, but it links into selling the results that customers got whenever you help them to achieve their business outcomes. So again, this is another example of an MSP in the UK where they helped a customer of theirs to implement a new ERP system. And what they noticed is through working with that customer on a regular basis is they were able to improve that customer's production rate by 32%. And they were able to increase customer satisfaction by 45%. So think about how strong that appears to your customer when you're talking about the types of results and showing proof of results of what customers get when they come with you. Do you think when you're getting that level of results, it becomes much easier for you to keep your customers and retain them? It certainly does, because some other MSPs, they're just going to have technology. They're not getting these types of business results. And then the third part of what you should be selling is an unrivaled customer experience. You know, we live in I call it a TripAdvisor world at the moment. You know, when you think about it, when you go on holiday, when you book a hotel, the majority of us, we all look up TripAdvisor before we go, before we book it, to see what kind of customer reviews are up there. And your customers do exactly the same. So they want to see, are the current customers that are in your MSP business, are they happy? Are they willing to give you 5-star reviews? Are they able to see those kind of big 5 stats in your MSP business? You know, how long do customers stay with you? What's your average customer retention? What's your employee retention rate? Because that also has a big knock-on effect. You know, how quickly do you answer calls? How quickly do you resolve tickets for customers? All of those things are really, really important for you to demonstrate early in the sales process, because the earlier you do it, the more customers you win, and then the more customers you retain, because you're giving them this unrivaled customer experience. The other key thing I love about delivering a good unrivaled customer experience is when you do, price becomes irrelevant. So for those of you who are calling in from the UK, you'll probably recognize these supermarkets. From anybody else in the US, I'll give you an example of some names, and hopefully they'll land with you. So we've 3 different products here that are available in all leading supermarkets. It's 3 breakfast cereals, 3 boxes of breakfast cereal. So just a product that everybody buys. The reason I share this is you have 3 products in 3 different supermarkets. The product is exactly the same. The size of it is exactly the same. But you've one supermarket who charges £2.50, and you have another one that's charging up to £3.89. So how can they charge so much more for exactly the same product? The answer is they deliver a better customer experience. So for those of you in the US, Asda is like a Walmart, and Waitrose is like, you don't have probably Marks and Spencer's or that in the US, but it's like a premium, like Whole Foods, like a Whole Foods market. So they're kind of the differences between the different supermarkets. But why are customers willing to pay more? Because they get a completely different customer experience. And the great thing is when you are selling the results that your customers get, the business outcomes, you are demonstrating your expertise. You are demonstrating that you can deliver an unrivaled customer experience. Pricing becomes irrelevant. So if you find yourself out in the marketplace and you find that you're always having price issues or price conversations, it comes back to your customers can't see the answers to these 3 questions. They can't see, why should I buy from you? Why should I pay you more than any other MSP? And how do you differentiate? They see the answer to those 3 questions when you sell expertise, when you sell results, and when you sell customer experience. And that is when you will set yourself aside in the market out of the sea of MSPs that are trying to win this big slice of the growth pie, and you will differentiate yourself in the marketplace. So the customer experience part is really important. And you're in good hands because, you know, you're clearly either a SuperOps customer or a potential SuperOps customer, and they can really, really help you to deliver and improve on that customer experience. So I think we're just going to spend a couple of minutes here on going over how you can help to improve customer experience.
Yes, yeah. So I'm not going to take a lot of time here. It's just going to be very quick points on, you know, how SuperOps can help improve customer experience. You know, for MSP and the clients, you know, we now know that providing a good customer experience is something that's become non-negotiable. So, you know, at SuperOps, everything we do circles around this. This is something that we have at our core. So for example, one of our modules, the project management module, we have a feature where, you know, you can share the projects with your clients so that clients are able to keep track of how the projects are going on and stuff. So what this does is it improves transparency. It gives your clients better trust, and that, you know, eventually converts into customers staying with you for a very long time. So we just wanted to let you know about that here. And with that, we have a small poll coming up on your screens. So here you go with the poll. Just launching the poll. And again, sorry about the technical fault of the chat box being disabled. So we set it up right now. It should work fine. So yeah, with that, I'll pass it on quickly to Fiona to carry on with the great presentation.
Okay, I think you need to end the poll as well.
Yeah, I'll end the poll, yeah.
Okay, so we are halfway through, just over halfway through our 7 retention strategies. So my next retention strategy is sell multi-year contracts. I see so many MSPs, you know, especially in the UK. I had a group in particular this week that I worked with. They were all selling 12-month contracts. Why would you do that? You have to keep having the conversation every 12 months and your customer isn't locked in. So 2 things that we do is we don't sell 12-month contracts, and we don't sell pricing plans. So if any of you are given things like good, better, best plans, silver, gold, platinum type plans, that's not consultative selling. That's just selling on price. So if you're selling 12-month plans, if you're selling based on pricing plans, in my experience, it is not a great sales strategy. What we do is we teach a consultative selling process where you're having a full business conversation with your clients. And when you're able to have that business conversation, you can show your clients how can you grow over the next 3, 4, 5 years together. And it's more of a long-term business strategy that you're selling rather than just managed IT support. So MSPs I work with, I teach you how to sell a 3, 4, 5-year contract term. And the best thing about doing that is when you have that, you become an integral part of your customer's business. So in terms of customer retention and keeping your clients for a lot longer, what they end up doing then is they see you as their forever MSP. So just like you see maybe a home you move into as a forever home, a home you're planning to stay in for a long time, your clients will see exactly the same when you have that kind of business growth conversation with them rather than just the technology conversation. And for you as an MSP, it's fantastic. Not only does it help you to have a higher customer retention, but the committed revenue that you have coming into the business actually massively increases the value of your MSP. So when you do get to the stage of perhaps you want to exit, perhaps you want to sell your MSP. One of the key things on your valuation that will make a big difference, maybe up to a 6 times value difference, is having customers on a committed revenue contract. So really aim to have the business conversations and sell a minimum of a 3-year term contract. That is a really good way to help with customer retention. So when we look now at the customer funnel, when we look at your entire customer funnel, your sales and marketing funnel, right from the very top, where we're starting on, okay, how can we put things in place at the top of the funnel to increase customer retention? We created the customer for life culture. We got really to know the customer, the business outcome storyboard, knowing everything that's important to them, selling them what they want, giving them what they need the whole way through the process. So everything up here, yes, it happens before you win the customer, but as a result of you putting those strategies in place sooner rather than later and putting focus early in the sales cycle, not just after you win the client, overall your customer retention rates will be much higher. So I know this masterclass or webinar is meant to be just about customer retention, but it's really important that you cover those first few strategies first, because it has such a massive impact on your customer retention rates once you bring the customer on board. So the next few strategies that I'm going to share with you are after you've won the customer. So you'll see out of 7 strategies I'm sharing, 4 of them happen before you've even won the client. The next 3 I'm going to share with you are when you win the client. So onboarding is a critical part of your customer retention, because your customer experience that they have with you in the first 30 days of onboarding with you will be a huge indicator as to how long that customer is planning to stay with you. Think about it yourself. Have you ever become a customer of somebody and in the first sale, in the first 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, you had an awful experience? As soon as you can pull out of that contract, you pull out because you had a really bad first impression. So for MSPs, in order to help you to overcome this and deliver a really good onboarding experience, I would encourage all of you to have a documented onboarding process. So a really good documented onboarding process will look something like this. Step number 1 is you would have a welcome meeting with whoever sold to the customer. So the account manager or the principal of the business, You would have a welcome meeting with the customer, and you would have your technical onboarding or support engineer that would be on that welcome meeting with you, presenting that united front of your MSP. Then you would go into your network audit. So this is where your technical engineers are going to take over, and they're doing the full audit of the customer's environment. Then once you know what you're actually starting to look after, then you can start to go into deployment. Then you can start to go into demonstrating to your clients when they do, or if they do have a support ticket to raise, how do they log tickets? How do they request support? And once they've had a demonstration of all of that, you would then go live with that customer, and they would be live in support with you. You should then have a final sign-off meeting once the customer goes live. And again, this should be with the technical team, but also with the person who sold and onboarded the customer. Again, the account manager, or perhaps the principal of the business, if you were the one that brought the customer on board. And then after that, onboarding doesn't stop there. Onboarding continues, because you should always be onboarding your customer by having regular strategy, regular service reviews and QBRs with that client, so that that whole experience continues, not just from the 30 days, but always a regular customer experience that is in place. The great thing about when you have a good onboarding experience is not only does it give your customers a really good first impression, it is also the best time for you to gain additional upsell from your customers. So one thing I always say to MSPs is the best time for you to sell to your customers is after you have just sold to them. Because they know you, they like you, they trust you, you've had a really good onboarding experience, they like what you're doing, they're in the buying frame of mind. So I call it the honeymoon period. So when your clients are in that honeymoon period, think about where can you identify upsell. Normally, when you're doing the network audit, you're going to identify additional upsell opportunities. When support goes live, when they raise tickets, you're going to see additional upsell opportunities. And then when you have that final sign-off with your clients and the account manager and the onboarding team, that's when you should be presenting your upsell and cross-sell opportunities. I'll give you a really good story of how much this can help. I have one client that I work with in the UK, a London MSP, and when he was onboarding one of his clients, he figured out that they were spending nearly 80k a year on third-party tools that they no longer needed when they moved over to his MSP. They were a creative design agency, so they were using these third-party tools that they needed because they had a lot of storage space that they had to have, and that's why they were paying so much. But when he migrated the entire business over to the cloud, they no longer needed these tools. So they saved the client money. He was able to identify that in the onboarding phase, and as a result of them saving that money, where do you think they then spent that money? They spent that money investing in more of his services and investing in more of his professional services to help them to review where else in the business they could save money. So that part of your customer life cycle is really important, because you could increase customer spend and frequency of spend so quickly just by having a really good onboarding process, which again helps with retention. The other thing is for retention is making sure you have those regular strategy and service reviews. So knowing your customers' priorities, knowing that after you onboard your customer, are you going to have QBRs with them every quarter? Are you going to have phased implementation plans? So in the first 12 months, in the first 24 months, what they're going to be achieving. The key thing is to have this set in advance. So when the customer is onboarded, they know how often you're going to be having these strategy and service reviews with them. But one thing I will encourage all of you to do is in your QBRs, ask yourself, what are you talking to the customer about? Are you printing out reports and showing them what happened in their network in the last quarter? Are you updating them on what software is about to expire or what servers are about to go out of date? Are you just talking about their network, or are you talking about their business? because QBRs are business reviews. They're not technology updates. And if you have a really good process for running QBRs where you are talking about the customer's business, you're going to be selling them more. You're going to be getting them to implement more of the technology you've sold to them. And again, the more you do that, the higher your customer retention is going to be. So number 6 moves us on to the next point, making sure that you understand your customer life cycle, so that when you do win a new client, you have regular touch points at every part of the customer life cycle. Because the more you have this in place, the more you're going to reduce churn, and you're going to increase your customer experience and therefore increase your customer retention. So when you win a customer, you're landing the customer. The next thing after the onboarding part of it is you should be getting your customers to adopt everything you have just sold to them. So you need to have an adoption strategy in place to get them using everything so that they realize the value of what you've sold to them much, much quicker. Because the sooner they realize value, the more likely they are to stay with you. Then we go into the expansion points, and you can't go into expansion points in your customer life cycle if you don't understand the total customer's business. So by expansion points, I mean cross-sell and upsell, knowing what the customer needs to do next. So in every QBR you go into, you know what you're going to be selling to them next. Okay, when you do that, that's when you retain customers and you have a high lifetime value. But a lot of MSPs, when I start to work with them, they do have upsell and cross-sell in place. They do have the winning strategies in place. A lot of them forget about the adoption phase. So let me introduce the adoption phase to you. You have 3 types of customer adopters. You have what I call low customer adoption. The easiest way to look at this is, think about a subscription that you have bought in the past. So I previously bought a Sky TV subscription, which I think everybody on this call will have. And I bought it because my son at the time, who was 8, he kept saying he wanted to watch the football and he wanted to watch all these movie channels. So I gave in and I paid the £80 a month, which is ridiculous. But it was £80 a month to pay for this Sky subscription. And when it came round for renewal, I figured out he wasn't watching any of the movie channels. He was only watching the football channels. So I cancelled the Sky subscription and I went to the BT Sports package, which was £30 a month. So because he wasn't using everything in the package, we cancelled this subscription. Think about your customers, everything you've sold to them. You've sold them the managed service outsourced contract. You've sold them cybersecurity, perhaps Microsoft Teams, and perhaps you've sold professional service days to them. Perhaps you've sold a business and continuity plan to them, but they're not using it. And if they're not using it, what happens is when your contract term comes, they say, I'm not using it, we're overpaying, let's cancel. So that's not a good strategy for customer retention. The second kind of adoption is high adopters. Now, high adopters can fool you because they have their heart in the right place. When you take them on as a customer initially, they love it. They love working with you. But then you find out after you've onboarded the client, they have a huge amount of operational problems in their own business. And because of the issues they have in their own business, it's preventing you from doing a good job in your MSP business. So the two of them don't align. And then the customer ends up saying, we love you as the MSP. It's nothing to do with you. It's us. So those customers are very dangerous because they can end up cancelling because they have problems in their own business, nothing to do with you. So you need to watch out for those high adopters. What you ideally want to have is what we call effective adopters. So customers who get it, they see how all your technology, all your specialist skills, they see how it links into their business outcomes. They see how it's helping them to grow their business. They see how it's helping them to fill the skills gap. When they see all of that, they are your perfect client. These are the clients that are a good fit for your business and you're a good fit for them. And they're also the ones that aren't a big drain on your resources. They're not costing you a lot of money. In fact, they're highly profitable customers and they're going to be customers for life. So that's the kind of area that you want to get to. So I encourage all MSPs I work with to create an adoption and retention scorecard, a bit like a white space analysis where you're looking at all of the customers you're serving, all of your customers in your MSP. Then you're looking at everything you have sold them. And every single quarter, you're looking at, have they adopted it? Have they been an effective adopter? Have they realized value? Do they see why they need that? And have a really good focus on it every single quarter. And if you see, as an example, that you've sold customers cybersecurity packages that included training, like end user training or cybersecurity awareness, and they're not using it, do a quarterly call out day, do a quarterly adoption day, teach them all on the same day. How do they tap into it? How do they use it? Because the more you can get them to adopt, the longer they are going to stay with you. And this is another really good example. A great example of a customer, of a company that is really good at getting customers to adopt is Apple. Some of you might be familiar with the phrase, once you have a Mac, you never go back. The reason people don't go back when they move on to a Mac is they're using it so much, it becomes too hard for them to leave it and swap to something else. And that's actually one of the reasons why Apple set up the Genius Bar. And it is a Genius Bar because they do free adoption days to teach their customers how to use everything they've sold to them, because they know that the more you're using it, the harder it is for you to leave. So think about it in your MSP business. Could you run customer adoption days to get your clients adopting more? Because if you do, you are going to have a higher customer retention. The last strategy, strategy number 7. One of the biggest complaints end users have when they work with an MSP is they can't see what they're paying you for. What customers don't understand when they partner with an MSP is if they don't hear from you, that's actually a good thing because it means you've got everything under control. But not all customers think like that. Some customers just see they're paying a high monthly recurring revenue, a high seat price every month, and they're not seeing what they're paying you for. In many cases, customers never see what they're paying an MSP for until a disaster happens. So this is an MSP in Ireland that we work with, and their client, they had just moved into a brand new office. And on the very first week of them moving into the office, the server room went on fire. And they got a phone call at 11 o'clock at night saying, obviously they had a complete disaster. They had payday coming the next day and they had to make payday for all of their employees. And they also had expenses and stuff that needed to go through the next day as well. So he was the only person, he was the only supplier that turned up to the business disaster recovery meeting the very next morning after the fire. And within that next day, within that 24-hour period, they were able to get the client to make their payday and pay all of their staff on time, despite the fire the night before. And as a result of that, the client gave them a testimonial. Now I know what you do. My strategy is don't wait for your clients to have a disaster before they know what they're paying you for. Send what I call them whilst you were sleeping reports. So whilst you were sleeping reports is every week, send them an update on everything you've done for them, all of the stuff that you manage. So whilst they were sleeping, this is what we looked after in your network. Even if they don't read the report, guys, and if you're using any kind of ConnectWise data, all of those systems, you'll be able to pull those reports from that. Just get into a habit of sending them every week. Even if your customers don't read it, they still get a weekly reminder that says, this is what we're paying you for. All right, so they are my 7 strategies. And when you implement those 7 strategies, you will end up winning the customer, not the sale. And that's really important. Win the total customer, not the short-term opportunity that lies in front of you. When you do that, you will have a high customer retention rate. So let's look at the overall scores on the doors. We're going to look at, on your scale of 1 to 10, when I looked at all 7 of those strategies, 10 being, yes, we're doing everything you've just mentioned, Fiona. 1 being, we didn't know about it, we haven't even started. where would you rate yourself overall on all 7 of those strategies? Just pop into the chat box for us. We won't name and shame, don't worry. So if you're a 5, if you're a 6, if you're a 7, just pop it into the chat box so we can see where you sit. And again, it's not just to point out that you have a gap, it's to help you to understand that these are small changes. When you look at these strategies I'm sharing with you today, a lot of this can just be small tweaks, small changes in your MSP business that can make a huge difference to your customer retention strategy. So if you haven't scored a 10, I would really encourage you to put the extra work in to get yourself up to a 10, because when you do, that's when you're going to have a high customer retention strategy. Have we anybody coming in? Is the chat box disabled again? Oh, we have a 3. Okay, you need some support, my dear. Okay, yeah, I get it. So we've some at 3, 4s. Okay, so guys, if you're anything under a 10, let me make this really easy. Even if you haven't put it into the chat box, if you are anything under a 10, you are leaving revenue on the table. You're leaving customers at risk, and you're leaving your clients at risk of competitors coming in and snapping them away from you. So a 10 is where you need to get to, and the plan is to help you to get there. So Shiram asked me to share at the end of the presentation how MSPs work with me. So we've shared a little bit of what we do with you today. So I'll share with you now how we work with MSPs, and then if anybody does want to get to a 10, if you've had value on today's webinar and you want support in getting to a 10, we'll show you how we do it with MSPs. So there's 3 ways that we support MSPs. For the larger MSPs, we normally do what we call VIP strategy days. So this is where we come into your business and we literally give you a makeover. We give you a complete sales and marketing makeover, looking at the entire sales and marketing funnel to see where the gaps are and then show you how to close those gaps. So if you get to that customer retention part and we see you have the gap, we show you what to do to fix that gap and to close it. The second way to work with us is through a group coaching program. So I have a 7-week live event where I run it live every week. You would join a cohort of between 10 and 15 non-competitive MSPs, and we get together every single week and we take you through the 7 stages of growing, keeping and retaining those customers. So there's a 7-step process that I teach you to go through that. And every week we take one part of it, we teach it, you implement, we teach it, you implement until we get the whole way through the 7 weeks. So for those who feel that they need to be held accountable, they need somebody to be the cheerleader to get them to do it and to make the change in their business, that's where people join MSP Sales Mastering. And then the final one is we now have all of that in an online product. So I have an online course now that covers everything that you need to know to really get a strategy in place to show you how to win, how to grow, and how to retain clients in your MSP business. So we've just touched on one of those modules today. So the 7 modules are all split up. It's a self-paced program. It's bite-sized learning. So you basically do it in your own time and you do it at your own pace. Module 1 is all about the strategy. Module 2 is all about the niching, building out those business outcome storyboards, building out the messaging, building out the value proposition. Module 3 is all about top of funnel. It's all about lead generation, which is why it's the biggest one in the entire set of modules, because it takes a lot of effort to create that 12-week campaign that we teach you how to do in the module. Then we move into the sales process. So module 4 is all about how do you run discovery calls, how do you qualify prospects to see if they're right for your business and to see if they're right for yours. Then we move into the sales meeting. So how do you run the actual sales meeting? Then we move into your, how do you present and articulate the value of why a customer should come with you? How do you present your pricing? How do you sell the multi-year plans? And then how do you create winning proposals? So we go through all of that in module 6. And what we've touched on a bit today is module 7. So module 7 is all about how do you keep customers. And that's some of the things we've covered today. But in the online course, we give you all the templates. So we give you the templates, we give you all the storyboards that are already pre-built. So whoever it is you're selling to, there is most likely a storyboard in there. If there isn't, then you just let me know and we create one for you. Because I work with over 500 MSPs. We've touched on every single vertical that people sell into. And at the end of the course, you have a full sales and marketing strategy. So literally every single module we teach takes you from the very start, top of funnel, creating that customer for life culture, the whole way down into how do you keep them, how do you increase your monthly recurring revenue, win new clients, get them spending more often, and then obviously keep them and have a higher lifetime value. That's what we do when you come through that program. And those modules are designed purely for MSPs. So although I've been in this industry for 25 years, for the last 7 years, I've solely worked with MSPs. So we don't work with anybody else, just the MSP industry. So everything here is designed just for you. So we understand your business, a bit like you understanding your client's business, I understand yours. So that's what you get in the program. And then SuperOps have worked with us to put together a scholarship program. So for anybody who wants to join the online program, who wants to join after today's webinar, you'll be able to for the next 2 days, because some people are live today, some people will listen to the recording, you're able to get a 50% discount in the scholarship program, which basically gives you a massive saving. So if you're in the UK, instead of 197, it goes the whole way down to £99, and you gain full access to the total program. But you have to use the coupon code. So I'll give you the link in a minute where to see it, and use SuperOps as your code, your coupon code at checkout, and then that gives you a scholarship program. And then that's how you enroll. So I don't know if you can put that in the chat box for me, Sharon. So you have the online program, which is mspsalesmastery.com/online course. So that's where if you want to enroll, and then as I say, for the next 48 hours, use coupon code SuperOps, and you'll get one of the scholarship places. Or if you just want to book a call with me to go through some of the other ones, you can check out my Calendly link and book in a free strategy call there, or just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always adding lots of value, putting lots of content out on LinkedIn. So connect with me even on LinkedIn after today's webinar, and we'll have a conversation after that. All right, so any questions? I'm going to move over now for questions. Perhaps if you want to take a photograph, even if it's not in the chat box, you can take a photograph of the links, and then you know where to go to. But in the meantime, I will move over for questions. So do we have any questions?
Yeah, so we had one question from Tom towards the start of the webinar. So the question is, what is expected with respect to client entertainment, gifts, travel, etc. for high-ticket long-term sales contracts with executives, mid-level managers, and first-level workers at our clients?
Okay. Tom, if you could just put into the chat box for me, what industry do you serve? So is there a vertical or a niche that you serve? The reason I ask that is depending on that industry, like for example, I was working with an MSP earlier, and they sell to the pharmaceutical industry, and they find that a lot of those pharmaceutical decision makers and executives, a lot of them love golf. So what we did there is we arranged golf days. So we got golf lessons, we got golf support, we put everything on a golf course. And when you do stuff like that, yes, it might be a little bit expensive, but taking clients out for a day and getting to spend a whole day with them, the conversion rates are really, really high. So if your decision makers are going to entertainment places like that, I would say it is worth you investing in having things like that, having days out with them, which can be high cost, but your conversion rates are also high. But make sure that you have qualified them beforehand to make sure they are a good fit for your business before you start spending money on them.
So
did we get his industry?
Yeah, we got an answer from Tom. Yeah, in the chat box.
Okay, so what industry was it?
So
call centers. Yeah, I think it was call centers. So yeah, so with call centers, just make sure it's the IT decision makers and the business decision makers you're taking out. I wouldn't be taking the staff out, but what I would do in a call center in particular, because I used to work in a call center myself years ago, I would come in and do like fun days. Like, I'm not sure, Tom, if you know Tech Data. Tech Data are a huge distributor. Well, TD Cynics, they're now called. So I used to go in there and I used to run like call out days. And you'd get them to do stuff with you, give out prizes so that you're getting them to focus on you. So I used to get them to call up partners and recommend our training. And then when they did it, they got prizes. So for things like a call out center, I would certainly do things like on-site days where you can go in there and create some buzz, create some fun, because you will get them talking about your business more. So for call centers, definitely do that. Or even things like quizzes. Like a cybersecurity quiz, have like a leaderboard. Which one of the people in your call center is putting your center at most risk? Take part in this short quiz, and then you have a leaderboard and you give a prize for those who know most. So even things like that, cybersecurity quizzes with them, something that's going to cause a bit of a buzz, something that's going to cause a bit of really interest in it, is what I would do in call centers. So I hope that answers your question, Tom. Just let me know in the chat box if you have any more. But yeah, call centers are great fun. I think it answered this question then.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? I think we have some people who had to run as well. Okay, don't think we have any. So thank you very much for everybody who has stayed on to the end, and thank you for SuperOps for inviting me to come today. And again, please feel free to reach out to me. This is my passion. So if I can help you to keep more customers, then please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll pass back over to you.
Thanks, Fiona. That was a really good presentation. So, everyone attending the session would have had a lot of insights from it. How do you retain clients? How do you make those upsells? Why are those upsells very important? And you took us through all of the process. So that was really great. So thank you once again for doing this.
You're very welcome. And hopefully the recording will be available. So for those of you watching the recording as well, again, feel free to reach out, and thank you for watching it.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye, guys. Have a great day.